What would you do if the most expensive weapon ever built started cracking apart every time it fired its own gun? Imagine spending over $100 million on a single fighter jet designed to be invisible, only to discover that pulling the trigger destroys the very thing that makes it disappear from enemy radar. That is exactly what happened to the F-35 Lightning II. And the story of how America fixed this problem is one of the most brilliant and terrifying engineering decisions in modern military history. If this kind of story fascinates you, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button right now, hit subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves military technology. Trust me, what you're about to hear will change the way you think about modern warfare forever. Let us go back to the beginning. The Lockheed Martin F-35, Lightning II. Is not just another fighter jet. It is the most ambitious weapons program in human history. 3 versions of the same aircraft were designed to serve the Air Force, the Marines, and the Navy. Each variant was built to do something slightly different, but all 3 shared one common goal: dominate the skies while remaining completely invisible to enemy radar. The secret to that invisibility lies in the shape of the aircraft and the special coatings applied to its skin. Every curve, every angle, every surface was carefully designed to deflect radar waves away from enemy detection systems. The materials covering the jet are not ordinary metal. They are advanced composites layered with radar-absorbing coatings that make a full-sized fighter jet appear no larger than a marble on an enemy radar screen. Now here is where things get complicated. Every military planner in the Pentagon knew one thing for certain. This jet absolutely had to carry a gun. Not just missiles, not just smart bombs. A gun. A real physical cannon built into the airframe. And the reason for that requirement is written in the blood of American pilots who died in the skies over Vietnam. Let me take you back to the 1960s. The McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II was the king of the sky. It was massive, powerful, and loaded with missiles. The engineers who designed it were so confident in the new generation of guided missiles that they made a fateful decision. They removed the internal cannon entirely. Why would you need a gun, they argued, when you have missiles that can kill an enemy from miles away? It sounded perfect in theory. In practice, it was a catastrophe. The AIM-9B Sidewinder heat-seeking missile had a maximum effective range of about 3.5 miles, but it could only lock onto the hot exhaust of an enemy jet from directly behind. If the target turned even slightly, the missile lost its lock. The tracking sensor moved at just 11 degrees per second. That is painfully slow. Any pilot with basic training could dodge it with a simple turn. The radar-guided AIM-70 Sparrow was supposed to be the long-range solution, but it required the pilot to keep the nose of his aircraft pointed directly at the target for the entire flight time of the missile. In a sky filled with enemy fighters and anti-aircraft fire, flying in a straight line was suicide. The real-world kill probability of these missiles dropped below 10%. And then came the rules of engagement. American pilots were required to visually identify enemy aircraft before firing. That meant they could not shoot from long range. They had to fly close enough to see the enemy with their own eyes, close enough for a dogfight. And in a dogfight, the F-4 Phantom had no gun. Pilots like Navy aviator John Chassire found themselves locked in close combat with enemy fighters, desperately needing a cannon to finish the fight, and having nothing but empty weapons pylons where a gun should have been. Men died because of that decision. The Phantom was eventually redesigned to carry the M61 Vulcan cannon internally. And from that moment forward, every American fighter jet was required to carry a gun. No exceptions, no debate. It became an ironclad rule of military aviation. So, when the Joint Strike Fighter program began in the early 2000s, the requirement was absolute. The F-35 must carry a cannon capable of destroying light armored vehicles at distances up to 2,700 meters. The weapon selected for this mission was the GAU-22A, a 4-barrel rotary cannon firing 25mm rounds. This thing weighs 230 pounds of precision machined metal and spits out 3,300 rounds per minute. That is 55 high-impact projectiles leaving the barrel every single second. The ammunition itself is terrifying. The PGU-23 is a semi-armor-piercing round with a high explosive incendiary warhead. It punches through steel plating, detonates inside the target, and sets everything on fire from within. Each round leaves the muzzle at 1,085 meters per second. That is more than 3 times the speed of sound. But here is the tension that defines every trigger pull. The F-35 carries only 220 rounds internally. The fire control system limits each burst to roughly 35 rounds to prevent the barrels from overheating. That gives the pilot 5, maybe 6 chances to fire before the ammunition is completely gone. Every single burst must count. Every shot must be surgical. The F-35 addresses this by linking the cannon's targeting system to the pilot's helmet-mounted display and the aircraft's active electronically scanned array radar. The gun follows the pilot's eyes. Where the pilot looks, the cannon aims. It is as close to a thought-controlled weapon as current technology allows. Now we arrive at the central crisis. Where do you put this mechanical beast inside an aircraft whose entire existence depends on smooth, unbroken surfaces? For the F-35A, the Air Force version, the engineers chose the obvious path. They buried the cannon inside the fuselage, hidden behind the left shoulder of the jet, concealed behind a retractable door that snaps open for a fraction of a second during each firing burst. On paper, it was elegant. In reality, it triggered a chain of structural failures that shocked the entire program. Here's what happens when the GAU-22A fires inside the F-35A. The four rotating barrels generate a recoil force of 16,500 newtons. To put that in perspective, that is roughly equivalent to the thrust of a small jet engine pushing backward against the direction of flight. In the F-22 Raptor, a similar cannon is mounted at the wing root, where massive structural spars absorb the energy without issue. But in the F-35A, the gun is mounted directly beneath a longitudinal beam that runs along the edge of the fuselage. Every time the pilot fires, all 16,500 newtons of force slam through that beam and radiate directly into the composite skin panels of the aircraft. Those panels were never designed to handle repeated high-frequency mechanical shock waves. The result was devastating. The outer skin began to crack. The radar-absorbing coating started to split and peel. The very thing that makes the F-35 invisible began to disintegrate every time the pilot used the gun. Pentagon evaluation reports published between 2019 and 2023 classified the F-35A's internal cannon as inaccurate and operationally failed. The vibrations caused by firing misaligned the gun's aiming system and accelerated fatigue in the composite material surrounding it. Severe restrictions were placed on how often and how long pilots could fire the weapon to prevent catastrophic structural damage. Think about that for a moment. The most expensive fighter jet ever built was being damaged by its own gun. The weapon installed specifically because history demanded it was now threatening to destroy the aircraft from the inside. Now here is where genius enters the picture. And this is the part that has military planners in Beijing and Tehran losing sleep. If you are still watching, you clearly have a sharp mind for this kind of analysis. So let me ask you something. Have you joined the notification squad yet? Because videos like this one do not stay easy to find for long. Hit that bell icon right now so you never miss a deep dive like this again. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, send them this video. Knowledge like this deserves to be shared. The F-35B, flown by the Marines, and the F-35C, operated by the Navy, faced a completely different problem. They simply did not have room inside for the cannon. The F-35B needs a massive lift fan in the center of its body for short takeoffs and vertical landings. The F-35C requires enough internal space to carry over 9,000 kilograms of fuel for long-range naval missions. There was literally not a single centimeter of free space left inside either aircraft, so the engineers were forced to go external. They turned to a Danish defense company called Terma, which developed two external gun pods designated the GPU-9A and GPU-8A. These pods are mounted on the centerline station underneath the belly of the aircraft. And at first glance, they look like a disaster. A bathtub-sized bulge bolted to the bottom of a stealth fighter. It breaks the clean lines, it increases the radar cross-section. It adds aerodynamic drag that slows the jet down significantly. But here is what that ugly pod actually does. It completely isolates the fury of the cannon from the airframe of the jet. When the GAU-22A fires inside that carbon fiber shell, all 16,500 newtons of recoil force are absorbed by the rigid structure of the pod itself. The energy transfers directly into the central structural beam of the aircraft, the strongest and most massive part of the entire airframe. Not a single vibration reaches the sensitive composite skin. Not a single shockwave touches the radar-absorbing coating. Not a single crack forms. The price of this solution is speed. Industrial data shows that while the F-35A needs about 8 extra seconds to accelerate from Mach 0.8 to Mach 1.2 with its internal cannon, the F-35B with the external pod takes 16 seconds longer. The Navy's F-35C requires an astonishing 40 additional seconds to push through the same speed range. 40 seconds is an eternity in aerial combat. It could mean the difference between escaping a missile and being destroyed by one. But here is the calculation that changes everything. In exchange for those 40 seconds of lost acceleration, the Navy gained an aircraft whose structure remains completely intact after thousands of rounds fired. No cracks. No peeling coatings, no misaligned targeting systems, and most importantly, dramatically superior accuracy because the weapon platform is not vibrating itself apart with every burst. This is what defense analysts call the sacrifice capsule concept. You sacrifice speed and stealth perfection in exchange for structural survival, combat reliability, and something even more powerful: modularity. And this is where the story becomes truly frightening for America's adversaries. The engineers at Terma did something extraordinarily clever. They designed what they call the multi-mission pod. It uses the exact same external carbon fiber shell as the gun pod. Same shape, same aerodynamic profile, same drag coefficient already programmed into the aircraft's flight computer. But instead of a cannon, the interior can be reconfigured in minutes to carry entirely different systems. Imagine pulling the gun out and replacing it with advanced electronic warfare equipment that can jam and blind enemy radar systems across an entire theater of operations. Or filling that same pod with long-range intelligence and reconnaissance sensors that can map enemy positions from hundreds of miles away. Or installing directional data links that allow a single F-35 to coordinate and control swarms of autonomous combat drones flying ahead of the main force. Or, and this is the one that truly changes the game, mounting a compact directed energy laser weapon system capable of burning out the guidance circuits of incoming anti-aircraft missiles before they ever reach the fleet. Laser weapons on a fighter jet. The stuff of science fiction is now engineering reality, made possible because someone had to bolt a gun pod to the outside of an airplane. While the F-35A is permanently stuck with its internal cannon and its cracking fuselage for the rest of its operational life, the B and C models gained unlimited modular flexibility. The limitation became the liberation. The flaw became the feature, and this capability is already reshaping how America projects power across the Pacific. Amphibious assault ships like the USS Tripoli are being converted into what military planners call lightning carriers. These vessels can embark up to 20 F-35B fighters, each equipped with these modular pods. They operate as rapid response forces capable of launching full squadrons in minutes, providing precision fire support for Marines on the ground, jamming enemy communications, coordinating drone swarms, all without needing a massive aircraft carrier or a land-based airstrip. China is watching this development with growing alarm. The ability to turn any amphibious ship into a light aircraft carrier carrying stealth fighters with modular weapon pods fundamentally disrupts their anti-access strategy in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. Iran faces a similar dilemma in the Persian Gulf, where these lightning carriers can operate in confined waters that would be too dangerous for a full-sized aircraft carrier. The ugly bump on the belly of the F-35 is not a flaw. It is a revolution disguised as a compromise, and that brings us to the deepest lesson hidden inside this story. The Vietnam War taught America that you cannot send a fighter into combat without a gun. The F-35A taught America that you cannot hide a gun inside a stealth jet without consequences. And the sacrifice capsule taught America that sometimes the most elegant solution is the one that looks the ugliest. The pursuit of theoretical perfection nearly broke the most expensive weapons program in history. It was the messy, imperfect, bolted on the outside solution that saved it. Real engineering is not about beauty. It is about survival. It is about adaptation. It is about looking at a problem that has no clean answer and having the courage to choose the ugly solution that actually works. The F-35 was designed to be invisible. Its greatest strength turned out to be the one thing you can see from a mile away. A carbon fiber pod hanging beneath its belly, carrying the echoes of dead pilots from Vietnam, the fury of a 4-barrel cannon, and the future of warfare itself. That is the story they do not tell you in the headlines. That is the reality behind the most controversial and most capable fighter jet ever built. And if you made it this far, you understand something that most people never will. In war, perfection is the enemy of survival. The engineers who chose the ugly answer over the pretty one may have just given America the most adaptable combat aircraft the world has ever seen. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was the external pod a stroke of genius or a sign of desperation? And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and I will see you in the next one. Because the stories that matter most are the ones hiding in plain sight.